Let's talk about how humanity's oldest fear became the internet's most dangerous conspiracy theory. Picture this. It's December 2021 and a California surf school owner named Matthew Coleman is driving his two young children across the Mexican border. His son is just 2 years old, his daughter only 10 months. Near the beach town of Rosarito, Mexico, Coleman takes out a spearfishing gun and murders both children. When FBI agents ask him why, Coleman calmly explains he was enlightened by QAnon conspiracy theories. He believed his wife had serpent DNA that infected their children, who would grow up to become monsters. This isn't fiction. This is where we've arrived after thousands of years of serpent stories, from ancient gods to viral videos, from religious texts to political movements. Today, we're going to trace that twisted path and discover how humanity's most basic fears transformed into one of our most deadly modern beliefs. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the very beginning. Not to conspiracy theories or internet forums, but to humanity's earliest civilizations, where serpents weren't symbols of evil, but gods themselves. Every major culture developed strikingly similar stories about snake-like beings who could take human form and wielded divine authority over mortals. Take ancient Babylon around 1750 BCE. Their creation story, the Enuma Elish, centered on Tiamat, a primordial dragon goddess who embodied the chaos of the ocean. When younger gods defeated her in cosmic battle, they used her body to create the heavens and earth. But this wasn't just mythology. Babylonian rulers used this story as political propaganda, claiming they descended from the heroes who conquered the chaos serpent. They literally justified their right to rule by connecting themselves to serpent mythology. Here's where the ancient myths start sounding eerily familiar to modern conspiracy theories. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions dating from around 1500 BCE, we find the Nagas, beings explicitly described as half-human, half-serpent shapeshifters. They could appear as beautiful humans whenever they chose. They lived in underground cities called Nagaloka, controlled the weather, guarded ancient treasures, and secretly influenced human affairs. The thousand-headed serpent Ananta Shesha literally held up the entire universe while the god Vishnu slept on his coils. The biblical tradition introduced a crucial twist that would echo through centuries. The Hebrew serpent in Genesis offered forbidden knowledge, transforming from wise creature to cosmic deceiver. By the time we reach the Book of Revelation around 95 CE, the serpent has become that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, a seven-headed dragon secretly ruling earthly kingdoms. But it was a group of early Christian mystics called the Gnostics who developed ideas that would prove remarkably similar to modern conspiracy theories. The Gnostics weren't a single church, but rather dozens of mystical groups that flourished between the 1st and 4th centuries CE. They believed that hidden knowledge, or gnosis, could free human souls from material imprisonment. Unlike mainstream Christians who saw the physical world as God's good creation, Gnostics viewed it as a cosmic prison. In Gnostic cosmology, the material world was created not by the true God, but by a false deity called the Demiurge. This being, sometimes depicted with a lion's head and a serpent's body, was known as Yaldabaoth. He ruled through planetary powers called archons, beings with beast-like faces and shape-shifting abilities who controlled human thoughts and actions through cosmic deception. They were, according to these ancient texts, deceptive entities masquerading as divine authorities while secretly enslaving humanity. Sound familiar? The Gnostics thought that these archons fed on human suffering and ignorance, keeping people trapped in cycles of conflict and despair. Only through secret knowledge could initiates see through the illusion and recognize their true divine nature. This wasn't abstract theology. Gnostic communities lived as if they were resistance movements against cosmic oppression, preserving hidden teachings they believed could liberate humanity from invisible rulers. Why did every ancient culture develop such similar serpent myths? The answer might be evolutionary psychology. Serpents posed one of humanity's greatest threats throughout our evolution as primates. Some scientists propose we developed a specific neural pathway to detect snakes quickly, a serpent detection theory, suggesting our brains are literally wired to see serpents as significant and dangerous. Combined with serpents' genuinely alien qualities, they move without limbs, shed their skin, can kill with a single bite, and seem to emerge from the earth itself, they became the perfect symbols for the mysterious and threatening. You might expect these ancient myths to have faded with the rise of modern science. Instead, something strange happened during the Victorian era that would resurrect these serpent gods in an entirely new form. The Industrial Revolution brought not just steam engines, but a crisis of meaning. As traditional religions struggled with Darwin's discoveries and rapid social change, new spiritual movements emerged to fill the void. In 1875, Helena Blavatsky founded Theosophy, claiming to channel ancient wisdom from hidden masters in Tibet. Her massive 1888 work, The Secret Doctrine, didn't just mention serpents, it was obsessed with them. Blavatsky wrote of dragon kings who were humanity's first divine rulers. She claimed these weren't metaphors, but historical records from ancient texts called the Stanzas of Siam, describing how serpent races guided human evolution through multiple stages she called root races. The third root race, according to Blavatsky, were the Lemurians, egg-laying beings with reptilian characteristics who possessed psychic powers and lived on a lost continent in the Pacific Ocean. Her ideas spread like wildfire. Theosophical societies formed across America and Europe, attracting thousands of educated middle-class seekers. Even more influential was Edward Bulwer Lytton's 1871 novel, The Coming Race, which described an underground civilization called the Vrilya, who possessed mastery over a mysterious energy called Vril. Though written as fiction, many theosophists, including Blavatsky herself, treated it as occult truth, incorporating Vril concepts into their teaching about Atlantis and lost civilizations. The term Vril came from the Latin virilis, meaning powerful or manly. In Bulwer Lytton's novel, this energy could be used for healing, destruction, or mind control. Whoever mastered Vril could rule the world. The book was translated into German 4 times between 1874 and 1924, making it widely known in Central Europe, just as political upheavals were creating conditions ripe for conspiracy theories. As Germany struggled through defeat in World War I, economic collapse, and social revolution, some people began mixing these occult ideas with political extremism. The documented historical organization known as the Thule Society or the Thule Society was founded in Munich in 1918 by Rudolf von Sebottendorf. Unlike later fictional accounts, the real Thule Society was primarily a political organization focused on right-wing nationalism and opposition to communist revolution, with about 250 members in Munich and 1,500 in Greater Bavaria. Several Thule members did join the early Nazi Party, including Dietrich Eckart, who became Hitler's mentor, and Rudolf Hess, who later served as Hitler's deputy. The society helped sponsor the German Workers' Party, which became the Nazi Party, and purchased a newspaper to spread their message. However, historical research shows Hitler never attended Thule meetings, and the organization's actual influence on Nazi ideology was limited. The society dissolved by 1920, long before the Nazis rose to power. But here's where the story gets tangled with fiction. Decades after World War II ended, writers began inventing elaborate stories about secret Nazi occult societies. In 1960, French authors Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bergier published The Morning of the Magicians, which deliberately blurred fact and fiction. They created the first systematic narrative about a Vril society, supposedly a secret group of psychic mediums who contacted underground serpent beings and helped develop Nazi flying saucers. Supposedly a secret group of psychic mediums who contacted underground serpent beings and helped develop Nazi flying saucers. This fictional Vril society bore no resemblance to historical reality. There are no contemporary Nazi documents mentioning such an organization. No Vril Society members were ever identified, questioned, or tried after the war. The elaborate claims about mediums like Maria Orsic receiving telepathic communications from the star system Aldebaran first appeared in 1990s publications by conspiracy theorists, not wartime records. The stories grew more elaborate through the decades. Writers claimed the Vril Society had developed anti-gravity aircraft called Haunebu flying saucers, bell-shaped time machines powered by mercury, and secret Antarctic bases where Nazi leaders escaped after Germany's defeat. None of these claims have any basis in documented history. Germany did conduct a single Antarctic expedition in 1938 and 39, but it was a purely economic mission to map whaling grounds, not establish bases. The expedition spent only 1 month in Antarctic waters and established no permanent facilities. Real Nazi occultism was far more limited than popular culture suggests. Heinrich Himmler did have personal interests in mysticism and founded an organization called the Ahnenerbe in 1935, but historical research shows it functioned primarily as a propaganda tool to establish SS influence over German universities rather than a genuine occult society. While the SS incorporated some runic symbols and neo-pagan ceremonies, most Nazi leadership used occult imagery for mass appeal rather than from sincere belief. The transformation of limited historical facts into elaborate fictional narrative reveals something important about how conspiracy theories develop. Writers took real elements, the historical Thule Society, genuine Nazi interest in advanced weapons, actual Antarctic expeditions, and wove them into compelling stories that felt true even when they weren't. These post-war inventions then became evidence for even more elaborate conspiracies. What's fascinating is how these modern conspiracy narratives actually have much deeper roots, ones that stretch back through ancient serpent myths and into an unexpected place, the pages of pulp fiction magazines. The story takes a curious turn in August 1929, when a struggling writer named Robert E. Howard sat in his Texas home, pecking away at Stories for Weird Tales magazine. Howard was barely scraping by on half a cent per word, just trying to make rent. The story he published that month, The Shadow Kingdom, seemed like typical pulp fantasy, nothing that would change the world. But without realizing it, Howard had created something far more lasting. The exact blueprint for conspiracy theories that would terrify millions a century later. Howard's serpent men were shape-shifting reptilian humanoids who lived in underground tunnels beneath human cities. They used mind control and perfect human mimicry to infiltrate society, replacing human leaders and ruling from the shadows through deception. These weren't ancient gods or mystical symbols. They were literal aliens conducting a secret war against humanity through impersonation and psychological manipulation. The story influenced H.P. Lovecraft, who incorporated reptilian themes into his cosmic horror tales. Together, they created a shared fictional universe where ancient reptilian races had ruled the Earth long before humans evolved, waiting in hidden places to reclaim their dominion. Academic Michael Barkun notes that, in all likelihood, the notion of a shape-changing serpent race first came from the imagination of Robert E. Howard. The bridge from fiction to supposed fact came through Maurice Doreal, whose real name was Claude Doggins. Around 1930, Doreal founded a mystical group called the Brotherhood of the White Temple and began publishing translations of ancient texts he claimed to have discovered. His emerald tablets of Thoth and Atlantean, supposedly found in the Great Pyramid in 1925, described serpent beings in language clearly influenced by Howard's fiction. Quote, "In the form of man moved they among us, but only to sight were they as our men, serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men." End quote. Doreal's texts, heavily borrowed from both ancient sources and modern science fiction, would become crucial source material decades later. What had begun as entertainment was being repackaged as ancient wisdom. Fiction was becoming mythology. Mythology was becoming occult truth. And occult truth was about to become global conspiracy theory. The man who would weave all these threads together, ancient myths, Victorian occultism, Nazi legends, and pulp fiction, into a unified theory that would captivate millions, wasn't scholar or mystic. He was a former BBC sports broadcaster whose personal transformation remains one of the most bizarre stories in modern media history. His name is David Icke, and in 1990, he was living a comfortable life as one of Britain's most recognizable television personalities. He'd been a professional footballer until rheumatoid arthritis ended his career at 21, then built a successful media presence presenting the BBC's flagship sports coverage to millions of viewers. Clean-cut, respectable, the kind of man your grandmother would trust with the evening news. Then, something happened that would transform him from a household name to global pariah, and eventually into the world's most influential conspiracy theorist. The turning point came in March 1990 during treatment for his arthritis. A psychic named Betty Shine told Icke he'd been sent to heal the earth and was receiving messages from spiritual entities. Within months, Icke was wearing turquoise tracksuits, claiming to be son of the Godhead, and predicting imminent earthquakes and floods on national television. His appearance on Terry Wogan's primetime chat show in April 1991 made him an object of national ridicule as the studio audience laughed at his claims. But this public humiliation, rather than silencing Icke, freed him from concerns about respectability. Over the following years, he developed increasingly radical theories, publishing them in self-funded books after mainstream publishers rejected his work. His 1999 book, The Biggest Secret, brought together all the scattered elements we've been tracing: ancient serpent gods, Gnostic archons, theosophical root races, fictional vril societies, and Howard's shape-shifting reptilians, into a unified conspiracy theory. According to Icke's fully developed hypothesis, interdimensional reptilian beings from the constellation Draco had been controlling Earth for thousands of years through hybrid bloodlines. These entities, which he identified with the Babylonian Anunnaki and other ancient serpent gods, maintained their human appearance through consumption of human blood and fed on negative emotions generated through orchestrated conflicts and crises. The theory named specific individuals: British royalty, banking families like the Rothschilds, American political dynasties, as members of this reptilian elite. Icke's sources were revealing. He quoted extensively from Maurice Doreal's Emerald Tablets, Zechariah Stitchin's ancient astronauts theories, and testimonies from people claiming to be survivors of government mind control programs. One witness, Arizona Wilder, alleged he'd conducted satanic rituals for the royal family and witnessed Queen Elizabeth shape-shifting into a reptilian with a long reptile face, almost like a beak. The financial success was remarkable. Icke claimed his book sold over 140,000 copies between 1998 and 2011, valued at more than £2 million. His 2012 Wembley Arena event, where he spoke for 11 hours to 6,000 attendees from 47 countries, demonstrated the global reach of his following. By 2006, his website was receiving 600,000 weekly visits. But Icke's theories carried troubling undercurrents. He repeatedly endorsed the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the fabricated anti-Semitic text that blamed world problems on Jewish conspiracies. When he identified reptilian bloodlines, he consistently named Jewish families like the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, and the Schiffs. His narratives about blood-drinking elites echoed medieval accusations that Jews murdered Christian children for ritual purposes, claims historians call blood libel. Academic researchers have documented these connections extensively. There is no fair reading of Icke's work that could not be seen as anti-Semitic. When Icke's book was endorsed by author Alice Walker in a 2018 New York Times interview, the resulting controversy highlighted how reptilian theories serve as coded anti-Semitism, allowing people to express ancient prejudices while claiming to discuss literal aliens. By 2013, polling found that 4% of Americans, approximately 12 million people, believed in the reptilian conspiracy theories. The foundation was set for something even more dangerous to emerge. That something was QAnon, a political conspiracy movement that would take Icke's conspiracies and weaponize them for the digital age. Beginning with cryptic posts on anonymous message boards in October 2017, QAnon created a new mythology that absorbed and amplified existing conspiracy theories, including beliefs about reptilian elites. But QAnon added urgent political purpose, transforming philosophical speculation into calls for action. The integration was seamless. QAnon's core narrative, a global network of Satan-worshipping pedophiles harvesting children's blood, merged perfectly with reptilian theories. These weren't just corrupt politicians anymore. They were literal monsters, requiring human suffering to survive. The adrenochrome conspiracy claimed these entities tortured children to extract fear-based chemicals from their blood, updating ancient blood libel accusations with modern pseudoscience. Social media platforms accelerated the spread through algorithmic amplification. YouTube's recommendation system, which drives about 70% of total watch time on the platform, systematically funneled users toward increasingly extreme content. Search for basic astronomy information, and within a few clicks you might find videos about Saturn worshiping cults. TikTok's For You page created viral vectors for conspiracy content, with individual videos claiming celebrities were shape-shifting, gaining millions of views overnight. The demographics revealed the scope of the belief. By 2023, polling found that 23% of Americans agreed with core QAnon beliefs, what researchers call the QAnon worldview. The correlation with trauma was notable. People who'd experienced significant personal difficulties showed higher rates of conspiracy belief. Online communities provided belonging, purpose, and identity to isolated individuals struggling with real problems. But the human cost was mounting. Beyond Matthew Coleman's horrific crime, other believers committed violence based on reptilian theories. In 2019, Bucky Wolf killed his brother in Seattle with a 4-foot sword, claiming God told him his brother was a lizard person. Anthony Quinn Warner's 2020 Christmas Day bombing in Nashville damaged 41 buildings. He'd expressed paranoid beliefs about technology and surveillance that included reptilian elements. During the January 6, 2021 Capitol insurrection, QAnon believers were prominently represented among participants. Signs and clothing displayed references to reptilian theories alongside political slogans. The ancient serpent had slithered from mythology through fiction into insurrection. Understanding why millions find these theories compelling requires examining the psychology of conspiracy belief itself. Research reveals that people embrace conspiracy theories during times of uncertainty, social upheaval, and personal distress. Pattern recognition, an evolutionary survival mechanism, becomes hyperactive in stressed individuals, causing them to see meaningful connections in random events. Studies show conspiracy believers demonstrate higher rates of what psychologists call illusory pattern perception, detecting meaningful designs in randomness. When researchers show believers random dots or coin flips, they consistently identify non-existent patterns. The COVID-19 pandemic created perfect conditions for this psychology, with 24% of healthcare workers endorsing conspiracy theories, showing significantly higher anxiety and distress. Trauma correlates strongly with susceptibility. Psychoanalytic research found reptilian conspiracy beliefs, quote, can activate unresolved memories of trauma and serve as a mediator between intrusive content and the psyche, end quote. Family histories featuring dominant, abusive parents appeared repeatedly in case studies of believers. But perhaps the most revealing is conspiracy theory's social function. Online communities provide validation, meaning, and identity to people feeling isolated and powerless in an increasingly complex world. Research shows the single best predictor of believing one conspiracy theory is believing others. They fulfill psychological needs that facts cannot address. The reptilian conspiracy's anti-Semitic core isn't subtext, but fundamental architecture. Medieval blood libel accused Jews of murdering Christian children for their blood in religious rituals. QAnon's adrenochrome narratives simply update this ancient hatred with scientific terminology. The shape-shifting element echoes medieval claims that Jews could transform into demons or animals to deceive Christians. International recognition of these connections has led multiple countries to ban or restrict conspiracy promoters. Australia barred certain conspiracy theorists in 2019 on character grounds. The European Union's Schengen area implemented similar restrictions, specifically citing anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Meanwhile, the conspiracy achieved something unprecedented in human history. It became mainstream entertainment while maintaining underground belief. Television shows, movies, and video games reference reptilian theories regularly. The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, and other popular series feature reptilian elite jokes. Video games incorporate shape-shifting overlord themes. The memification provides plausible deniability while spreading core concepts to new audiences. QAnon and other conspiracy movements' memification provides plausible deniability while spreading core concepts to new audiences. Mark Zuckerberg was forced to state, "I am not a lizard," during a Facebook Live Q&A after persistent online harassment.
There's some pretty good ones, especially You know, one of the crazy things when you do these live Q&As is some of them are very silly. So we got one. Mark, are the allegations true that you are secretly a lizard? I'm gonna have to go with no on that. I am not a lizard, but you know, keep the high quality comments coming in, please. This is surely on track to be a great live Q&A if we continue getting stuff at that level of quality. There's actually a lot of funny stuff in here too.
Videos claiming to show politicians' eyes changing shape go viral with millions of views. The National Security Council has jokingly responded to claims about reptilian bodyguards. Beneath the humor lies genuine belief among millions who see these jokes as acknowledgement of hidden truths. The cultural impact extends beyond internet memes. Families have been destroyed by reptilian beliefs, with support groups forming for those who've lost loved ones to conspiracy theories. Mental health professionals document conspiracy theory addiction, with symptoms including anxiety, social isolation, and loss of behavioral control. Studies link conspiracy belief to lower mental health, life satisfaction, and psychological well-being. As we move deeper into the 2020s, the reptilian conspiracy shows no signs of retreating. Platform crackdowns drove believers to alternative sites like Telegram, where researchers analyzed 4.4 million messages across QAnon groups. New technologies amplify the threat. AI-generated deepfakes, quote-unquote, proving shapeshifting, proliferate faster than fact-checkers can respond. Virtual reality promises immersive evidence of reptilian realities. The political integration continues deepening. Survey data shows significant percentages of certain political groups believe in QAnon conspiracies that incorporate reptilian elements. The conspiracy has achieved something previous generations couldn't imagine: electoral relevance in democratic societies. Universities now offer courses examining the phenomenon. Academic journals publish analyses of reptilian belief structures. The conspiracy theories become its own field of scholarly study, with researchers working to understand how ancient symbols adapt to address modern anxieties through digital amplification. So what does all this tell us about ourselves? The reptilian conspiracy represents humanity's oldest story twisted into its newest threat. From Babylonian Tiamat to QAnon's storm, the serpent has shapeshifted through millennia, adapting to each era's fears and technologies while retaining its essential symbolic power. What began as mythology explaining cosmic order became occult speculation, then pulp fiction, then sincere belief, and finally, weaponized delusion. Each transformation retained previous elements while adding contemporary concerns. Victorian spiritualism's hidden masters, science fiction's alien infiltrators, New Age frequency theories, political conspiracies' urgent calls to action. The pattern reveals profound truths about human psychology. We are pattern-seeking creatures in an increasingly patternless world. We crave narrative coherence in an age of information chaos. We need identifiable enemies within our real challenges. Climate change, economic inequality, pandemics. Resist simple personification. The reptilian conspiracy offers all of this and more. Ancient wisdom combined with cutting-edge revelations. Hidden knowledge paired with public awakening. Identifiable enemies alongside cosmic purpose. It transforms feelings of powerlessness into claims of special insight. Social isolation into community membership. Confusion into crystalline clarity. But the cost is catastrophic. Children are dead. Families are shattered. Democratic institutions strain under assault from citizens who believe their opponents are literal monsters. The serpent that once symbolized wisdom now spreads dangerous delusion. The dragon that ancient heroes slayed now lives in our smartphones, fed by algorithms and animated by our own engagement. Maybe the most chilling revelation isn't that millions believe shape-shifting reptilians rule the world. It's that this explanation makes more sense to them than the complex, mundane reality of human systems failing human needs. When faced with capitalism's contradictions, institutional failures, and social fragmentation, some people find it easier to believe in lizards than confront humanity's capacity for ordinary greed, indifference, and systemic dysfunction. The serpent's tail isn't ending, it's evolving. As AI generates increasingly convincing evidence, and social media platforms struggle with content moderation, the conspiracy adapts and spreads. New generations discover old theories through technologies, ensuring the cycle continues. Understanding this history isn't mere academic exercise, but survival strategy.
But I remember he leaned into the mic and told President Trump, "We're coming for you." And he growled out this demonic sound. I can't make the sound, but it was this demonic voice. I've heard him make it again recently. And he growled this out. When he did, I went back and I took a picture. I think it was at that moment. It was one of the moments I took a picture with my phone right on television. Yes, okay, it's up there. Now look at the eyes. If you'll look at the eyes, you'll notice there's serpents' pupils. They're slotted pupils. Now other times they're not like that. But at times it shows a slotted serpent's eye. And people say, "Oh, that was Photoshop." No, it wasn't either. I took the picture.
The next time someone shares a video claiming to show a politician's eyes turning reptilian, or whispers about underground tunnels full of serpent people, or posts about ancient bloodlines and Babylonian brotherhoods, you'll recognize humanity's oldest story in its newest disguise. You'll see the serpent for what it truly is, not a hidden ruler or cosmic threat, but a mirror reflecting our deepest fears about power, identity, and truth in an age when all three seem increasingly uncertain. In the end, the reptilian conspiracy may be remembered not as humanity's strangest delusion, but as its most revealing one. Proof that when reality becomes too complex to comprehend, we retreat into the comforting certainty of ancient fears dressed in modern clothes. The reptilians aren't coming to destroy us. We've been telling stories about them destroying us for thousands of years. The question isn't whether they're real, it's whether we can survive believing that they are. And the conspiracy reveals an even deeper truth: the fact that QAnon is simply a revived Nazi death cult. Thanks for listening.